Gooched. So getting to the shop here this morning, and things are kind of a mess. Yesterday I got the timing replaced, which was important because I found a huge chunk out of my timing belt. Here it is here. Stretched and thin. Holy crow. It was making all kinds of noise. I could hear noise coming from under the timing cover, and I knew that I probably had an idler pulley that was on its way out. This chunk out of the timing belt right here. And so I replaced the idler pulley and the timing belt. So the engine's completely disconnected from everything and it's just dangling in the engine bay. And well, I got some bad news. This is a captive nut that is supposed to be up inside of the chassis up in here, and it's welded by the factory to the sheet metal just on one side. You can see this flange here. So this normally sits right on the edge of the sheet metal up in there and is welded before these panels are put together, and it broke loose. This is the bolt. This is, you know, what it's supposed to look like. It goes up through here. Up into the chassis. So I cut the end of this off, and this was dangling. I tried to weld a nut on here and pull it out, and it just, as you can see, it's just completely seized in there. Actually, while this was inside of here, sitting like this, I drilled a hole through here and stuck a screwdriver through there to try and you know, lock it in place. As you can see, there's a hole straight through, so the thread, the bolt doesn't go up that far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flatten this out again, and I'm going to trace a nice square shape, and I'm going to go cut a piece of sheet metal the same size as that, and I'm going to cut another hole up here. It looks like Toyota might have intended for this to be an area of repair. This little detent or recess here, in my opinion, if you cut just inside of this flange, I should be able to put another one of these inside of there and weld this top back in, and then repair this by putting another plate into here and welding it all in. And if I do this right, there's a possibility I could save this vehicle. Let me show you where I'm going to get my donor piece. Thankfully, we've got this Celica GT4 and this MR2 over here. And the fella came and cut the front end off of this GT4 to give his another life after an accident. So thankfully this bolt here, it threads perfectly up inside of this piece on the Celica. So I believe that inside of here we're going to find the same setup. I'm going to hack this all off, and let's see if we can save the Rav4 GTT. This here is the dash out of my Rav4 GTT, and I still haven't got to like making this bodywork really pretty. But what I did was I sprayed this with some stuff from Home Depot called Make It Stone, and it's sort of like a textured surface, and it has this little white fleck in it. So what I did was I sprayed this over the whole thing, and then I sprayed it with flat black header paint. I actually find this high temperature header paint to be sort of like a flatter black than some of the flat blacks that you buy, you know, for the purpose of being flat black. So hopefully this will take a little bit of glare off of the windshield and give a little style to the Rav4 GTT. Oh man, I want to get this mess cleaned up. It's hard to work when it's a mess like this, but I really want to get this resolved so it can be back to the part of, you know, just replacing my timing, because it's all this was supposed to be. But there's like 365,000 kilometers on this Rav4 GTT. I think it's 365. Let's go have a look. My key isn't actually even on that. And I've got the battery disconnected. So you're just gonna have to trust me. It's a digital odometer. So I got a lot of the wiring, for the most part, it's cleaned up. This was like dangling messes for a while. Anyways, let's get to chopping this Celica apart. See what happens. Well, that didn't take long. Finally got this mess cleaned up while we were cutting video and chopping the part out of the Celica, the Celica, whatever you want to call her. Look at, you can just see that spot of rust right there. That's the spot weld that holds this piece in. I mean, for the torque that these are supposed to have, there should have been two. If there was two, pardon me, if there was two, it definitely would have extended the life of a lot of these vehicles. Really silly. So I'm gonna cut this off, grind this out, get this anchor, captive nut, cage nut, sort of like a threaded bushing. It's pretty big. This is because it's gonna have a lot of torque. If you have just like a small nut here, it's likely to strip out the threads probably. So really important to do this right. So what we're gonna do, oh yeah, look at, okay, here's the exhaust, right? This section here up to that weld was an entire exhaust system for the Celica GT4, and from that weld to the other flange there is just, you know, stainless 3-inch, but that's a MR2 piece Celica downpipe, MR2 mid pipe, I guess, and then the Celica exhaust system. I don't know what brand it is. I'm gonna figure out for you. There's a, you know, like a, frig sakes, can't talk. Anyways, this piece in there, it's gotta go up in there. So we have to cut a section open here, big enough to be able to get a die grinder in there and get to bare metal and have that captive nut come up there, tack weld the top of it, and hopefully we can save the Rav4 GTD. Oh boy, let's see what happens. Gooched.